What's up, everybody? This is Sonia Gomez coming to you live from Colorado. This is another bonus broadcast of Legalize It, Don't Criticize It, the place to be for cannabis, hemp CBD, and the new and emerging business opportunities that are making everyday people like you and me an opportunity to be able to invest and potentially profit from what we are calling the green rush. This is such an exciting time where I've been able to connect and actually interview, ask the tough questions to the entrepreneurs who are pioneering this industry, opening up opportunities, offering services, creating products, and innovating ways for us to be able to utilize cannabis and hemp, and most of all, be able to benefit both in our health and in our financial space. This is one of the most exciting times that we have seen in many, many lifetimes, actually. We are calling, this is the new boom. Said the canna boom is like the gold rush, is like the oil boom, is like the tech boom, and something to really pay attention to. We've already talked about the major medical benefits of cannabis and hemp CBD, and now we're trying to focus more attention on the cannapreneurs who are making this all possible. Let's start out by letting us know where you're tuning in from, guys. What city are you in? What state are you in? Are you happy to be here today? What are you most excited about? In a moment, I'm going to be introducing to you to one of the female entrepreneurs, one of our lucky ladies, our green goddesses who are pushing this industry forward. But first, let me introduce you guys to my co-host. We'll say what's up to Miss Nicole Buffong. What's going on, Nicole? Thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. Sorry about the green call button, but hey, everybody out there. And it's so great to be back, Sonia. It really is. And thank you, Jennifer. I'm so excited.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me say what's up to some of you guys. I'm going to check you out on my phone while we're doing this because we got all this fancy technology going on. I don't want to mess anything up. But let me say what's up to some of you guys who are popping on here. Yay. As always, a big shout out to our moderators who will be posting links, checking in, liking and sharing. And as you're getting benefits from this content, I want to make sure that you like and share. With your help, we've been able to impact over 27 million people's lives. And we continue to share the truth about cannabis and the emerging opportunities every single time that you like and share content like this. Thanks so much for being a part of this community. And with that, let me say welcome and what's going on to Miss Jennifer Sanders, the founder of an amazing investment company, which she'll tell you more about here in just a moment. What's going on, Jennifer? Thanks so much for being here with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I like how you also preface it with the truth of what's going on in the industry and what's really happening for people who are owning and running and managing these companies, because it sounds a lot different sometimes than what you're reading and hearing on TV.
Right. Well, we all know, well, some of us will share opinions about mainstream media.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And how it can be, you know, manipulated to make you think or believe certain things about real life situations. It's tough to know who to trust. And we really focus on, you know, highlighting from the stories of the entrepreneurs and the patients who are using cannabis, or Miss Mary Jane, as I call her, who are using her to change the way that they feel and function and even generate financial wealth and freedom for themselves and their families. So it's such a fascinating time, isn't it? Did you lose sound again, Jennifer?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So okay, before we dive in deep into all of this stuff, I'm so excited. We all ladies here, we all hold really incredible positions in this industry. I can't wait to hear more about your business. But for those people who don't know you and who are just tuning in, why don't you just take a moment to introduce yourself? Who are you? What are you doing in the industry? And what are you most excited about right now?
Great, thank you. I've been a silent investor for a few years now. I've been in the industry at this point. My background is in institutional risk management and investment management, which basically just means that I would work with banks and investment firms to launch new locations, find great different investments, and now analyze them, do the due diligence, which means to review things that you're looking for when you're looking at an investment that makes sense for you and your portfolio, or you and your investment or retirement savings. And that's really my background. The reason I'm in this industry actually is because my mother passed away. And previous to this business, I was so anti-cannabis. I believed everything. I was one of those dare kids. You know, I had never used the plant. I had securities licenses and clearances and things where it just wasn't in my life. And it opened my eyes with my mother, who unfortunately passed away. But we, during that time, used medical grade hash oil that helped her stay off all intravenous pain medicine.
Wow.
Totally eye-opening for me as a person. And
Wow.
I became very focused on speaking this truth to people like me and industries like me, because while we see a lot of people out there picketing and, you know, wearing the t-shirts and going to these rallies and hood fests, those aren't the people who are managing pools of capital, you know, influencing banking decisions. And so it had to come from, I felt, a voice like mine to speak to other voices like mine, because we really have the power to change the landscape of what this industry looks like and the way that it's approached. And so my portfolio started as simply me opening a holistic health retailer that also sold cannabis and going through the licensing process, and then ultimately into cultivation, and then launching different product lines, and now owning events and part of media companies. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew. But I run a private equity firm, which basically means I own a company that owns multiple companies that are not on the stock exchanges. And we initially started with just my own capital, and I was really lucky to have a very successful business exit a few years ago. And I just went out and kind of played for things that I was passionate about. And I was really passionate about getting this message out there. I believe cannabis is one of many medicinal herbs. Yeah.
I have to ask this question because I want you to continue on what you're saying. But when you talk about having things that you are passionate about and interested in be a foundation of your decision making when investing into cannabis, this is something that I love, by the way, because I teach and preach. Get involved with something that you're passionate about. It's the thing that's going to keep you going, keep you alive, keep you in the trenches when stuff gets tough, because it's not perfect no matter what. There's always ups and downs. And
that's right.
So I just want to take a second and focus on that for a moment. What are some of the things that you're excited about and that you're passionate about? And as a smart woman who's obviously built success and had the capability to invest into something, what were some of your considerations, your interests, your passions? Where are you putting your money right now? I'm so nosy.
I really say put your money where your mouth is, but also put your money where your heart is. So I agree completely. Our company has made the largest donation to cannabis research in North America, over $1.5 million donation we made this year. And so when people are saying we care about the medicine, we care about the research, we want to influence policy change, put your money where your mouth is. You know, we're not out there making gummy bears. And I appreciate everyone that is having companies like that. But I am passionate about people having much more respect and education and understanding around this and many medicinal plants. But I think the opportunity for cannabis on the investment side is profound, but really I either created companies, purchased companies, or invested in companies that products I use, services I wanted, things that didn't exist. Most of our portfolio are things that never existed that I believe should. And that's really what I did. And that's a hard way to do it. I just want to be very clear that startup companies in emerging markets like the cannabis industry that have so much risk and volatility, I could go on and on for hours. I did at MJBizCon, I speak all over in this industry. I'm not going to give you that happy story of what the cannabis industry is like on the investment side. I'm going to give you how to practically look at what you care about investing at first, and then how to make good business decisions thereafter.
Love it.
I'm so glad to have her as a guest.
Y'all get your notepads out.
Yeah.
Jennifer, as a woman in this industry and really focusing on the holistic side, what are some of the obstacles that you've had to, overcome, or just in general getting into this on a holistic side? Because that's the side, that's the angle that I'm coming in as well, trying to heal my body.
Exactly. I believe in plant medicine. I think so. Let's start at the premise there that I believe cannabis is one of many medicinal herbs. I think the challenges that I've seen are mostly what we call in the investment industry called regulatory risk. Basically meaning that at any point in the moment, regulations can change at not only your local level, your state level, going down to the city level, the federal level, and then you've got different regulatory bodies like the DEA, the FDA, all of these different bodies that are saying conflicting things. And when we have right now a drug going through FDA approval that shows there are, medical benefits of a cannabinoid such as CBD, it's really challenging to people like me who say, okay, well, here's a Schedule I drug, and you guys need to internally align before you start, creating laws that are going to continue impacting my businesses and people's health. And that's more of my premise is I want mainstream America to have access to this plant affordably.
That's right. And, not the synthetic version.
No. And in some cases, I think that isolated treatment therapies can be helpful. I don't necessarily subscribe to, packaging up an edible and saying it's made with love and throwing it in the California dispensary market. I believe in free market and free business, but I think that we need to professionalize this industry and make good quality medicine.
That's right. I agree. Thanks for doing what you do.
It has been hard. I will tell you.
Well, they say that the pioneers are the ones that have the most arrows in their back. So, we need an exoskeleton to get through this life. I'll tell you what. Let's talk about CNS Equity Partners and AURA Ventures for just a moment. Tell me, how did you end up founding this organization, and what are you guys specifically focusing on right now? Is it the medical devices, or is there a bigger picture, a bigger mission here?
Yeah, there is a bigger picture. I think you'll hear this word when you're investing vertically integrated. And so what that means typically for people in the cannabis industry is own your cultivation or grow facility, own your processing or pieces of your processing for products that you're making, and own the retail aspect. Well, we did that. We've already done that over the last 3 years. And now I'm looking at owning events and media companies and ancillary marketing firms that we create. Aura is a marketing, advertising, and event management firm. We just produced an event with NBA champion Matt Barnes and Snoop Dogg. That was a huge charity event related to cannabis research. So I'm trying to craft what the industry looks like to the new consumer, because I believe that we can continue speaking to the converted. We can continue speaking to people who already use cannabis, but it's not who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to everyone else who hasn't tried the plant, who needs to really approach it in a delicate and educated way, and to make it affordable for those who need it on a consistent basis, so they don't have to rely on what you would consider the Western prescription medical philosophy, which I'm not against. I feel that this plant has so many medical attributes that needs to be out there affordably.
Absolutely, and incorporated into a traditional system. I think the two work really well hand in hand. Natural and holistic medicine can be really powerful for preventative medicine and fortifying the body to be able to be more functional and responsive, not reactive to Western medicine. And I think Western medicine is fantastic for finding out what's beneath the surface. Thank God for the tests that they have available. I have multiple family members who owe their lives to the advancements in medicine. And I have others, parts of our community who are disintegrating under its power. And that is devastating to watch, which is why we're so committed. And it's very tough here in this industry to not get caught up in the gloss. They have turned Mary Jane into a sex symbol. Things are being, medically altered or scientifically altered, similar to our food. where it's now genetically modified, totally jacked up with THC. The other cannabinoids are being bled out in commercial manufacturing. And my question is, how do you protect and preserve the integrity and quality of the plant so that it can in fact become these higher level and higher quality medical grade medicines in unique delivery systems, and still have all of the cannabinoids present and intact? It is my opinion that God made this plant in its divine perfection. And when you start to pick it apart, you might be advancing in one direction, but digressing in another. So my interest is, especially in making these medical grade products, or going through this intense medical testing, trying to put together the research that would support the federal government or global governments accepting and allowing for medical use, and then eventually adult access. How do you do that? What is the answer to that question? How do you create the standard in the industry so that it A, can be professionally represented, and B, the integrity of the plant is not compromised, so that we can truly reach and achieve medical grade medicine for those who need and want it?
Mm-hmm. You're right. It comes down to understanding what this plant can do, and I think we're still unclear. I think anecdotally, we've seen so many amazing, wonderful stories about people being healed. I mean, I managed my retailer for the first year and a half that it existed. I was hands-on with the patients, hands-on with the people using the plant. Loved it. Wish I could do more of that. But I think the answer is a substantiated and real research. And there's only a few bodies of groups of people who can actually do that will impact, policy change. And like I said, UCLA's Cannabis Research Initiative is where I felt had the most credible and robust system to actually perform that research and get those answers to get delivered to the legislators to impact policy change. So I think that's just where we are in America. I know there's some great research that comes out of Israel. Unfortunately, it's not impacting us here. And that's unfortunate to see. We also have a very good relationship with some pharmaceutical manufacturing and drug companies, actually. And the research that will be coming out of UCLA will help impact real manufactured drugs that will be used. And I would say prescription drugs. I don't like the word drugs, but prescriptions that can be used that, like you said, work on this full spectrum, philosophy. But there are some reasons for isolated cannabinoid therapies in certain instances, especially with children. And so I just want to remain very open to, I think there's a lot of potentiality with this plant, and however it needs to be used to accomplish the goal shorter term, let's appreciate that. And then longer term, when we can have that full spectrum cannabinoid understanding, the medicine's just going to get better and better and better.
Question for you, Jennifer. So with this UCLA study, how do patients become more involved? Because I would love to be a test subject. And so how does that work?
Yeah. So if you go to UCLA's Cannabis Research, it's called CRI website, and I can share that information afterwards. They're always looking for people who are A, participants, and B, also donations. And so since they are not federally funded part of this organization, they rely exclusively on donor donations. And so that is the only thing I can see currently that can make real change very quickly. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to work with the director there, his name's Dr. Jeffrey Chen, to help strategize exactly what research is needed. And that means me liaising with the attorneys, the lobbyists, the policymakers, to understand where are they held up, and is it medical efficacy? That's a Schedule I conversation. And then secondarily, is it, how do you define impairment? Because that impacts, the driving, the age of use, that impacts a lot of different things. And so that's the work that I love doing, and that's more so on the strategy side, as I said. Our portfolio, going back to just kind of the premise of CNS Equity Partners, we donate 25% of our net profit. And so we always came into understanding that the money that we made was going to be used for good. And that's this impact investment philosophy that the Rockefeller Brothers Fund had kind of created. It's called impact investing. It's meaning that everything that you invest in and everywhere you put your money, and even in our case where your money is derived from, comes from high virtue sources, have great intentions and abilities to make real change, that have philanthropy embedded into the monetization strategy of the business and organization. Meaning you make money planning on giving away money, planning on creating impact, planning on doing good for the community, the earth, the environment, and obviously the institutions and systems that you're working within, in our case, the cannabis industry.
Wow. That's
I
amazing.
love you right now. I'm just like,
Yes.
It's my life's work.
Yes, man.
I love that. I love that.
It's so incredible to be in the presence of a kindred spirit. You know, I often get and hear feedback on the entrepreneurs, the change makers, the pioneers of this space, and the commentary that I get back from my audience. And if you guys are liking this, go ahead and like and share this. Tag 5 people that you know this is going to make a difference to. It's our mission to share with you the truth about cannabis and tell the stories of the entrepreneurs who are making change and influencing the direction and development of this industry. With your help, we've been able to impact over 27 million people's lives, and we want to continue to get the truth around the world so that we can start to see global adoption and safe access without legal interference for those of you who need and want it. And what an incredible impact this plant and its relatives are making on the world right now. It's so incredible to see, you know, just right here on my highway, there are hemp farms popping up all over the place. And I have the great good fortune, we have over, I'm not sure how much you know about us, but we have about 1 million followers. We are reaching anywhere from 10 to 25 million people a month. We have over 3,000 published articles inside of our education platform, which is medicalsecrets.com. And we've been a part of this industry for a long, long time. So I get to go and sneak and peek and meet all of these amazing people who are transforming their alfalfa farms into hemp farms and turning empty, old, you know, falling down buildings into beautiful cultivation centers or extraction centers or whatever. And it's just so fascinating to be in the presence of kindred spirits. Social entrepreneurs is what I like to say, ones who, like you said, are considering the impact that is going to be made in their community with their families, how all of these things are being represented. Now, we know, we kind of know that you're kind of a big deal, right? And and when in the presence,
not really.
when in the presence of somebody who has, you know, walked the trail ahead of you, you're going to ask them, hey, what's to come? How am I going to be successful on this hike? And we have a lot of people inside of this community who are interested in investing, interested in getting into the industry somehow, and they need some like key things to follow, some direction that can set them on the right path or get them over that next hurdle. What is some of the advice that you can offer? Give me 3 tips that helped you get started and keeps you kind of centered on the path here.
Sure. I think the first tip is understanding if you want to have your own business and be part of that operating management aspect of owning your own business and kind of diving into the cannabis in that way. That's absolutely one way to invest. That's your mind, body, time, soul, savings, everything. That is obviously going to be the riskiest place to be a part of it. And there's a lot of thoughtfulness that needs to go around making that particular decision. Then the second, thing you'd want to look at is, do I just want to invest? And then do I want to invest in one company, or do I want to invest in a fund which has professional management and people to actually find and select those companies that make sense for a particular philosophy? For example, our investment philosophy is holistic health. And so that could include, non-cannabis companies like, hemp candle, soap, candles, body scrub, because that's going to lower the risk of the overarching portfolio and make it a lot easier for an investor to weather some storms, meaning the volatility in the cannabis industry particularly. We're also seeing that another tip I would look at is that cannabis is as a holistic health medicine is not essentially the best investment out there when you're considering that holistic health industry in general is growing 150 times faster than the cannabis industry internationally without the regulations and the tax implications that come with, and potentially legal implications that come with cannabis. And so get your mind really, really right about, is it cannabis because it's cool? Is it cannabis because your heart is in the plant and there's something you're trying to do with that plant? Or are you looking as an investor and trying to make a sound investment decision that considers different elements of diversification, meaning owning multiple things to balance out the risk reward trajectory for you. So that's the second tip. I think the third tip is just work with people that you trust or that come from trusted sources, because there are a lot of people in this industry. They're not wonderful people, and I've met a lot of them, and I've unfortunately worked with some of them and made the mistakes that I think a lot of people are still making. There are not a lot of companies in the cannabis industry that are currently profitable after tax. That's a hard reality. That's a hard thing for people to really hear. There are not very many. You know, even if I'm looking at some of our portfolio, there's only one of our cannabis companies that's actually net profitable after taxes, and that's because it's diversified in holistic health. It's a retailer that sells half cannabis and half other products. So there's reasons for that. So I would just look at, don't get caught up in just your cannabis conversation. Get caught up in making a wise investment decision that follows your heart and passion.
Man, such wise words. And there's a couple of really key things that you hit there that are, I think, for those of you guys who are watching or considering cannabis investment, have already started, you know, down the path of tailoring your business or your services to the cannabis space or to serve the industry. There's a lot of things to pay attention to here. And right. If you guys are loving this information, make sure that you like and share it. Tag 5 people that you know it's going to make a difference to, you know, getting sharing this kind of information and helping people get to know the folks who are inside of the industry is one of the major ways that you can participate in its legalization. I know that that's a huge mission for those of us, especially who are living in states where it is not yet legal. You know, we want to see, I always get asked that question by you guys, how can I participate in pushing legalization? How can I get people informed and educated around me? And it's by sharing information just like this so that we are getting the truth out there. The sugar coat and the candy coat. And it seems like, Jennifer, have you seen this recently where everybody,
all the time,
everybody
all
in the world, all of a sudden is some sort of cannabis expert? They're just like, all of a sudden they can tell you where to invest their money. They know the secret stock picks. I'm seeing this stuff show up all over the internet right now. And I keep getting messages. Is this person legit? Because we've kind of become the trusted voice. Is this, you know, is this person legit? Should I invest my money with them? So I'll ask you, because you kind of got the inside scoop here. When somebody is going to invest their money and they are perhaps going to put their money inside of a fund, what kind of questions should they be asking the firm or the management team? What should they be looking for? What are some of the qualities that makes a person trustworthy, that you know your money is going to be not only safe, but actually making multiples and you're not getting ripped off?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing any investor is going to want to look at is obviously the experience of the management team, meaning the management team of the portfolio managers, meaning if you're looking at investing in a fund, who is actually managing that money for you? Do they have obviously an extensive experience in the investment industry in general, which is its own industry, which has its own complexities and talent pool? And then how many of those people have actually invested in the cannabis industry or managed or operated within the industry? Because making sound investments, you know, the due diligence checklist that you would go through for just a typical investment, a lot of it doesn't apply to the cannabis industry. So unless you have people that have actually been in the space and have a track record of success, That's something you want to take a look at. What is your track record of success? How many companies have you purchased, invested, sold? What's your portfolio turnover look like? Because I just always will caution you, I don't see a lot of really attractive investments. And I come from professional risk management, so I am hyper conservative in what we do. Now that, when it was my own money, I obviously took more gambles because it was kind of like, here, I just want to create things. I care about them existing. But now that we do manage capital for other people, there's this fiduciary responsibility. And so to answer more of your question about what things to look for, it's the quality of the investments within the portfolio and how they've invested. Have they taken equity positions, meaning do they own portions or all of certain companies? Have they taken a position of debt? What's the quality level of the debt that they've taken on? Typically in the cannabis industry, the debt quality is quite low, meaning high risk. Are they getting a really good return associated with that extremely high risk rate for debt? Are there convertibility? What's the quality of the portfolio first and foremost? And secondarily, you want to look at just what's their investment style. And what that means for us is we are a mid-growth, high-value company. That's what we look for. So what that means is we look for mature companies that have been in existence for a couple years. They've weathered the storm of that venture capital startup aspect. They're looking to grow, acquire, or expand, whether it's nationally or internationally. There's a lot of potentiality for that on the valuation side, meaning the potential growth of your investment. And then we also look for companies that are affordable. So we don't just go out and buy something really, really expensive just because it's going to be a good investment. We want to make sure that we've protected our portfolio by putting in little pieces in different places and doing so in an affordable way. I'm very blessed to be able to invest in mostly things that aren't for sale. So that's something that's a little unique. So you got to remember, I'm very radical in this impact investment style. I'm extremely radical in our philosophy. And then the access to certain investments that I have is not normal because I've built relationships over many years with either the investors or the people who have owned and started these companies. And there's a respect level of who they want to buy parts of their company and who they want to invest in. And what it's called, if you're a company, is a strategic investor. What can we do for that company that's going to help them grow? And since we have a marketing, advertising, event management firm, with talent celebrities that we're working with, that's very attractive to a lot of these companies. And sometimes I can invest in companies for no money. I can invest in services. That's very, very unique. Yeah. Very unique.
I have a question about maybe for the average Joe, Jennifer, that have come to us, that reach out to us. I'm the Georgia chapter president for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And a lot of what we get is, my family still owns land, but we live in a state where it's not legal yet. How and where do we get in on the ground floor? And I'm telling them to hold on to their land, don't sell it. And so what are some tips that you can give to people who are individuals, that aren't coming in with corporate money, but may happen to have land or have family that has land?
That's my favorite type of investor. That's the real person. That's the real person whose families have saved a little bit of money or have an asset or they have a piece of land or property and they just haven't been able to utilize it to the best advantage. I see that a lot in places like Iowa where there's layers and layers of farm debt for 50, 60 years. They've been, farming corn or soybeans and they've been in debt for multiple generations. I mean, if you can imagine that, it's a lifestyle for them. One of the companies I created actually, which was the Green Heart, which is that holistic health retailer, that's its goal. Its goal is to work with people who have land, have real estate, or have the capital, and we turnkey that into a cultivation facility, a processing facility, or holistic health retailer. That's like the perfect franchise concept. And then they get to choose whether they want the autonomy of partially running that operation or letting us run it for them and just giving them, the money for the use of that property, et cetera, or coming in as an equity partner, which is super rare in our industry. So I've created structures to allow for that because I think that is the future of the cannabis industry is the farmer, investor, normal person. there's a lot of great people that have institutional investment firms that are going to manage, $14 billion and put it in Canopy, and that's wonderful. But I think that the way that cannabis is going to get into these local communities in a way that's respected is by working with people who have lived there for many years and multiple generations. Yeah,
for sure. So that's the
Green
Heart. So the greenheart.com. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's the greenheart.co, actually, the greenheart.co. Yeah, and actually, I think the website's being updated like next week. So it may not speak to that franchise philosophy because we're launching that in 2019. But if anyone has interest in it early, I can definitely speak with them. But I hand select who we work with that because I care so much about the legacy of this particular brand, which is not very raw cannabis in your face. It's very community friendly. It's very free educational classes, free classes to learn how to grow, free herbology. It's a lot of companies will say, oh, we're very unique. It's the only thing like it in the world. I have never seen anything like it. It's something I created from scratch. I lived in the attic of that first dispensary for 8 months with no heat and no cool. So when I tell you I've had a hard road, it has been blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes. I love it.
Oh, Jennifer, you're taking me back. My mom still owns property in Mendocino. It's Mendocino, Humboldt Hills. Like, I'm one of the girls who come barefoot running down the mountain and came over to Colorado to support the development here because I knew that the people's voice needed to be heard. And when I hear you with such passion and commitment to the communities that these businesses are serving, I'm just so inspired by that and really moved and very grateful. And I just want to ask you, when considering the communities, what do you think? My question is going to be, what do you see the benefits of legalization being for the US and global economy? And I want to just make the statement that in Colorado, we are driving on new roads. My kids are going to new schools. They're playing on brand new playgrounds. The teachers are happy. Buildings are full. Neighborhoods are improving. I'm seeing the real-time economic benefits of this evolving industry. But I'm really curious to see, especially because you're making investments in more of the rural parts of the country, what do you think the impact of legalization could and will be once it's passed?
So I think you touched on, what you're seeing in Colorado, which is infrastructure improvement. And so I think we're going to continue to see that, everywhere that cannabis is going to be legalized and utilized in the states and cities that they work with. I don't necessarily feel that the percentage of taxes that are associated with the sale of cannabis is extremely beneficial to the end consumer, though I think that those were concessions made to really show that there could be potential impact to that infrastructure situation. When we look at the Midwest, I think when we're contemplating hemp as part of the cannabis conversation, huge impact to commodity disruption there in a positive way. When you have, corn selling for $3.62 a bushel, and you have hemp that trades 4 or 5 times that for the same volume, it's kind of a no-brainer. And so it's going to allow people to get out of, like I said, multiple generations of debt potentially, but also it's going to disrupt the food chain. And what that means, and this is kind of this very much looking forward to the impact, is the less corn and soybean that is being produced in America is going to shift dramatically the type of food. And I don't want to get too much into the kind of the FDA situation, but the quality of food and the access to more nutritional dense foods will improve. And that's a long conversation on how that can go, but I just want to touch on that the quality of the food in America will change. And that's so wonderful to me because that's nutrition, which means preventative wellness and holistic health. So I think that's an overarching concept that a lot of people don't understand, that the impact of hemp and cannabis is not just the roads, the streets, differences in there. I think that there's a lot of thoughtfulness that needs to be put into the impact to the medical industry. and if they're willing to play nice or if they're wanting to challenge and to continue not embracing this plant in the way that it could be utilized even now. So I think that there's shifts that are going to be made there. Some of the work that we're doing with UCLA is actually creating a credit-bearing program for doctors to learn how to implement and utilize cannabis within their practice, prescribe dose, et cetera. And that is revolutionary. And that's something that is going to infiltrate, obviously, the medical industry. So I see changes not only to the revenue base for, obviously, taxes, which are helpful, if used properly and allocated properly. I don't obviously control the federal government spending, but more revenue there is the potential, and then infrastructure throughout anywhere that's legalized, obviously. I think that there's a lot of messaging related to responsible use campaigning that some states are starting to embrace, and I appreciate that. Our firm Aura is going to be working on a couple of those different projects, and that matters to me because I want people to have a better relationship with understanding and accessing the plant, especially their first use of the plant, particularly. So I think those are some of the elements that are going to be orchestrated over the next few years as we continue to see legalization.
What is something that inspires you, like a quote or a piece of literature, or something that centers you when you're looking for or to share a life lesson? Like, what is one of those quotes that you go back to or share with folks?
I think it has more to do with the base of my philosophy. I practice Buddhism, which is a philosophy and a thought practice. Yeah. I do very intense, deep and silent, extensive meditation to remain very centered. I think that I don't have a particular quote in mind, but I think that ultimately I personally believe in my world that I'm responsible for everything. And so I can only be present and give 100% every single moment. And that means forgetting about the past, actually, and forgetting about the future for a moment and just saying, how can I embrace this moment right now to its full potential? Because that's all I can actually control. And that's sometimes a good thing to think about, and sometimes that's a very frustrating thing to think about. So I just think of the power of being present.
I think that's really, really powerful to share. I think a lot of folks, and everybody at some point feels this way, where they have to just succumb and surrender to their circumstances, that they can't build or create anything outside of what they've been given, and it becomes like this end all be all, and we feel somehow a victim of life, right? And when what I hear you saying and embodying in a lot of ways is, one has complete control over what they think, over what they believe, over how they respond, and whether or not they react. And that one thing I share with my kids is, you can choose to be reactive or proactive. The only difference is the choice. Both things are right there at the surface, but what you select will determine the outcome. Are you going to be proactive or reactive with this situation? And it's remarkable to see what they do with that. I think people need to feel that sense of empowerment, and we don't take enough time for self-care.
That's right. Self-care is divine responsibility.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
a lot of responsibility, and you have to be committed to it. And I think that's true also. Obviously that's true for business, that's true for relationships, and it all starts with yourself. This has been such an uplifting conversation for me. I'll just have to say right now.
Touche.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to get to know you. I've heard a lot about you. I think we have a friend in common, Amy Diulo. And
wonderful.
Yeah, just such a sweet woman, and another amazing, profound power, a force to be reckoned with in this space. And I can't wait to connect with you more and see how we can continue to support. As both Nicole and I'll just share myself, I'm working very heavily in the hemp space right now, and I'm working with such incredible people, as you're describing, ones with generational debt, but also generational assets that are just waiting to be transformed. And they have amazing life stories that have brought them to where they're at, and are just looking for their way in right now. So to have some place that I can send them and say, like, look, there is possibility here, this feels so good to me, because I love to be that liaison. That's why we started what we did. We've only had this community and resource center for 18, 19 months, maybe 2 years.
Wow.
And we've went from 0 to 1 million in that amount of time.
And that's awesome.
I'll never forget. And this is just a moment for me to acknowledge and my amazing community. You guys being the reason why I do what I do every day. The letters that you share with me, the voices that you have, the stories that you share are just so impactful. They are so profound for me, and they wake me up every day and put me to sleep every night. I read every single letter that you guys send, and I'm so grateful for those of you who stay active and supportive to one another in this time of uncertainty and searching and solidifying the progress in our country is an amazing thing to watch. And I'm just so proud to have you guys a part of this community. Thank you for what you've done to help us grow, and by continuing to make a positive impact with the industry by liking and sharing content that we are creating. God bless you, and thank you to my moderators. Jennifer, any last words of wisdom from that amazing aura of yours? I'm just so excited about you.
Oh, thanks. I would just say, be very, very cautious, but don't be fearful. Like, it's a great industry. It's a great place to be. There are good places to invest. There are good companies and good managers and operators and fun people out there. So work within your network to find out who those people are, and go for it. Definitely go for it.
I wanted to ask you one more thing, Jennifer, before you went. Just first, thank you so much. Me, as coming into this from the holistic side, I'm looking to heal my body and to help others heal themselves using the plant from a holistic way. And what are you doing anything outside of the United States? Because like Sonia mentioned, like you mentioned, there are things that are happening globally in this industry. And do we go to the greenheart.co to find out more about how to do that?
That's one way. So that's the franchise aspect of it, which is the retail, the cultivation, processing. The main focus is on retail, because we want to get these products out to people. And when I say these products, I mean a very crafted and curated set of things that are going to be good for you from companies that are doing good things too. So there's a very deep curation process there. But internationally speaking, yes, I will be working on actually developing out an entire tribal nation in Canada. So when you're talking about like projects, it's like, okay, yeah, there's people working on retail and facilities. Like, we're building out an entire like campus of agriculture, community education, thousands and thousands of jobs. We're building out a town, an actual village. So that's a cool project that we're.
Who wants to go to the village? If you want to go to the village, say yes.
Everyone's going to want to go to this village. Basically, the concept is it's supposed to be the first time that we have a very sustainable and longevity focused processing, cultivation, and whole like artisan community craft network that's built, that includes all different types of herbs like lavender and chamomile and tulsi, which is holy basil, ashwagandha, in addition to the cannabis plant. And there's nowhere that currently exists, and hemp as well, and utilizing all of these different amazing plants to really rebuild an entire community that has fought for 70 years to get the right to their own independent nation back. They're one of the only independent nations. They have their own, think of like a state. They have their own state that was granted them by the Canadian government. And so they're just ready to make the biggest impact in the world and create, hey, if you want to learn how to use cannabis, do, integrated manufacturing facilities, you want to make medicine with different herbs and cannabis right there, this is the place. And it's a passion project. So I was very honored to be even approached to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Well,
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Village.
Yeah.
Tell us how we can move in.
Yeah.
I'm ready to work.
Yes, I know.
Put me in, coach. Put me in.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Lots of work.
Okay. Well, I think I have picked you over, my friend. I have definitely, I'm again,
Thank you.
I just cannot say this enough. I'm in awe of other women in this industry. You have to have a very tough exoskeleton to be a part of it. And one of the things I respect most about you is how consistent you are with your message and your mission, and how unwavering and unapologetic really about your position and your passion and the impact. I haven't once heard you talk about the income, except for
No.
a secondary thing that happens. You've been very focused on the impact, and I respect that so much. It's because of entrepreneurs like you that we will be able to see real transformation happen, I think, in our community, in our families, in our communities, in our cities, our states, our country, and eventually in the world. And it starts with you. What a perfect representation of that you are. I love it.
Yeah,
all of us. And thank you for allowing me to kind of share my philosophy too, and talk about what I do. And certainly we all run good companies that make profitable companies that give to charity, and that's kind of the goal. So yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Thanks
To get
for
in
what
touch
you do.
with get in touch with Jennifer Sanders, we will be posting all of her links inside of this chat. So make sure that you check that out. You can also go ahead and hit the messenger inside of this page here, and we will personally send you a private message so that you can continue to get notifications on when we're going live, when we're bringing on change makers like Jennifer Sanders, and when we are discussing both the health and the financial benefits of being involved with and supporting the mission of the Green Rush. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. This is another bonus broadcast of Legalize It, Don't Criticize It, the place to be for cannabis and hemp CBD. I'm your host, Sonia Gomez, my co-host, Nicole Buffong, and our lovely guest, Jennifer Sanders. Thanks so much for tuning in with us, and we'll see you on our next show. Bye.
Thanks again.
Thank you.